All right, like I said, Kamala Harris has already stolen Donald Trump's no tax on tips policy. You know that he introduced that way back in the summer. Very warmly received when he announced that in Las Vegas. I think it was June, maybe. And, of course, then she comes back around and he gets, of course, dismembered on national media. Oh, it's going to raise the debt by $250 billion. There's no way to pay for it. She comes out and does it. Oh, what a great idea for working people. It's remarkable. Isn't she just such a visionary? No, she has no vision of anything. In fact, she also stole JD Vance's idea to increase the child tax credit. So here's the one thing that she says she's different on Joe Biden. Instead of a $3,000 child tax credit, she's going to make it $6,000 in that first year. So here's $3,000 for you if you have a baby. But there are some new Trump ideas that she probably won't steal because the regime news media is working hard to suppress them. Earlier this month, Donald Trump promised to enact some policies that would really actually work to reduce inflation. Here's what he came up with at the Economic Club of New York as a way to reduce housing prices. Listen.
And we will open up portions of federal land for large-scale housing construction. These zones will be ultra-low tax and ultra-low regulation. One of the great really small business job creation programs it will be of all time. We're going to open up our country to building homes inexpensively so young people and other people can buy homes. You can't buy them anymore. Millions of Americans will take part in setting these safe and beautiful communities, reviving the frontier spirit, and really, as I said, reviving the American dream. It's about the American dream. It's all about the American dream. We don't talk about American dream with these people in office. They don't want to talk about the American dream because they're the exact opposite. They're the exact opposite.
Oh, by the way, federal lands aren't just in the middle of nowhere. You go to Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico. These places have millions of acres of federal land that, by the way, there's no constitutional provision to have in the first place, so they should be released. It's a brilliant idea. It truly is. Some of these are in urban areas where just a little space needed for an apartment complex or two could make a massive difference in this housing deficit we have. But I don't want government building the houses. Let private sector do that. Give them the land opportunity and see what happens. But you won't hear about that in the regime news media, will you? Heck, even conservative news media isn't talking much about these new ideas. Not enough. I'm not even talking about it enough. It's a brilliant idea because it means I can afford to have a piece in Montana again. Thank you. Because make no mistake, today's Fed rate cut is old policy. It's an old idea. They play games. Does it really make any difference? Who knows? The Fed's playing games and putting money in its pocket. Remember, it's not part of the government. It's a private entity. We need new ideas. New ideas, and Trump keeps coming up with them, and the regime news media keeps ignoring them. Remember when President Trump doubled the standard deduction for people who don't itemize their taxes? Doubled the standard deduction. That was the greatest trickle-up tax policy of all time. It helped lower middle-class and blue-collar workers more than anyone else. Most of you didn't even know that, did you? And that's a problem. Because it's all part of a bigger con. In fact, the biggest con of this presidential election. And that's saying something. For an election filled with cons. You have a candidate in Kamala Harris who is polling pretty well on the economy in a lot of surveys. Not all of them, but most of them, it seems. Can you believe that? Not only is she a key member of this administration that is responsible for this economy, she's also criminally unable to answer any questions about it. Here she is simply not answering the question again about what policies she would enact to fix our economic problems. This is from a friendly interview she did with a local news reporter in Philly on Friday. Remember, here it is again.
What are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn.
Very proud of their lawn. Oh. She grew up in an upper class elite area of Montreal, Canada. Montreal, not the United States. Didn't grow up in Detroit or Baltimore or Philadelphia. She grew up in Montreal in a huge Victorian mansion. Don't vote for Kamala because inflation is killing you. Vote for her because we need a country with a president who cares about our lawn. God help us. Seriously. And you go look that up, that neighborhood. What is it called? I've got it here, I think. I'll have it for you in a second. The neighborhood in Montreal. Very wealthy neighborhood. Not a place that most of us grew up, I'll tell you that. Not a place I grew up with one black and white television until the mid to late 1970s. Yeah, I'll tell you that. All right, listen, I want to get back to a couple of the things that Donald Trump said last night while I have a moment. I want to go right to what Donald Trump said about the auto industry. A little bit more on that. Here it is.
The building, so I said, where would I go? And let's go take a look at a beauty. He said, well, we'll have to go to Mexico. I said, wait a minute, I'm not interested in, no, I want to know here. He said, here we don't build top of the line. We build smaller plants. We build, there's just not that kind of a thing. And I said, isn't it sad? He feels that too. You know, he's a United States guy. But he said, if you want to see the big ones, you're going to have to go to Mexico. They're owned and built by China in Mexico. And there are a number of them going up right now. And they think they're going to make their cars there, and they're going to sell them across our line, and we're going to take them, and we're not going to charge them tax. We're going to charge them, I'm telling you right now, I'm putting a 200% tariff on, which means they're unsellable. Unsellable in the United States. And then you wonder why it gets shot at, right? You know, only consequential presidents get shot at. When I say something like that, you have countries saying, this guy, but what can you do? You have to do what you have to do, right? We have to be brave. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country left.
Have to be brave or we're not going to have a country left. Another little bit of what happened in Flint last night. More to come here on the Steve Gruber Show.